Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Lisaan-ul-Qur'an, Easier Than English, Lesson 17, Part 2.
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
Alhamdulillah, we've been developing our knowledge of the Madi, the past or the perfect tense, and the Mudare, the imperfect tense. The past tense, of course, deals with an action that is complete, i.e. the perfect tense, and Mudare deals with an action that is being done or will be done in the future. Now, the patterns of the verbs are very simple in Arabic in the Form 1, which is your Mujarrad, meaning only 3 root letters in the Madi, no addition. So what we have here is an example where each of the root letters takes a fatha, fa'ala. Of course, we noted that the middle root letter can change. So we have fa'ala, but in the Mudare also, the middle root letter can take a fatha, damma, or kasra. So the first example we have is fataha yaftahu. Yaftahu, the middle root letter taking a fatha in the Madi and the Mudare. The second example we have is nasara yansuru. So here we have nasara, fatha in the middle root letter. Here we have yansuru, which is the dhamma in the middle root letter. And then third example we looked at is daraba, fatha in the middle root letter, yadribu, kasra in the middle root letter. So please pay attention to these changes. So there are hundreds and hundreds of verbs that will form one of these patterns or follow one of the patterns. Either it will form fataha yaftahu, nasara yansuru, daraba yadribu. Of course, we look at the others later where the middle root letter in the Madi takes a kasra or damba. So this is what we've learned so far. So please note this, very important. What we've learned is Baab fataha. So any verb in Arabic that follows the fataha yaftahu pattern is called or it is said that it belongs to the Baab fataha, the fataha group of verbs. And the example, of course, we have others. Ja'ala yaj'alu, jama'a yajma'u, salaha yaslahu. Very simple, inshallah. We've done this already. Then we go look at the second one. We call that one Baab nasara. Nasara yansuru. Again, examples been given to you already. Some. Khalaqa yakhluqu, dakhala yadkhulu, razaqa yarzuqu. As simple as that. So the verbs that follow that pattern is said to be belonging to Baab nasara. Then we have daraba. Daraba, again, those that follow it, we have daraba yadribu, zalama yadlimu, ghafara yaghfiru, kadhaba yakdhibu. And again, as I said, there are many verbs. So if you learn fataha yaftahu, nasara yansuru, daraba yadribu, then you can form hundreds and hundreds of words in the Quran or Arabic language. And you can also, of course, recognize any of the 14 forms, either in the Madi or in the Mudare. So for each verb, you can form 28 words. And that's exactly what we've done in part 1. Now, what do we do when the situation where we have the middle root letter taking a kasra? Remember, with the fatha, we had 3 options. The Mudare, the middle root letter can take a fatha, damma, or kasra. But what happens when the middle root letter here takes a kasra? What are the options? Baab sami'a. So again, we go back to our template. Fa'ila. Again, note here, the middle root letter is taking a kasra. What happens in the Mudare? In one form, which is the sami'a form, we have sami'a, and then we take the fatha in the middle root letter in the Mudare. So we end up with sami'a yasma'u. Sami'a yasma'u. Again, this is another pattern in Arabic verbs. So we have another Baab, another group. We're going to call this one Baab sami'a. Sami'a yasma'u. So this is now the Madi, the past tense of sami'a. We've done this 14 form already. So just as a quick reminder, if you know number 1, using the rules we went through in the previous lesson, you should be able to form all the other 13 and making a total of 14. Let's quickly conjugate together so we can practice one more time. Sami'a, sami'a, sami'u. Sami'at, sami'ata, sami'na. Sami'ta, sami'tuma, sami'tum. Sami'ti, sami'tuma, sami'tunna. Sami'tu, sami'na. So here we have a 14 Madi, which I'm sure by now, if you've done the practice, as I mentioned, this should be second nature to you. So we're now going to conjugate the Mudare. Please note there is absolutely no difference whatsoever compared to what we've already done with the other three patterns. So all you need to do is know which is number one, and the rest is easy. Now again, sami'a, it should be yasma'u, yasma'u, sami'a, yasma'u. From there now you can form all 14. So let's do it together for practice. Yasma'u, yasma'ani, yasma'una, yasma'u, yasma'ani, yasma'una. Next we have tasma'u, tasma'ani, yasma'na, yasma'na. Please note this is ya, not ta. Yasma'na. Then we have for anta, tasma'u, tasma'ani, tasma'una. Anti will be tasma'ina, tasma'ani, tasma'na. And for I and we have asma'u, nasma'u, asma'u, nasma'u. Again, another pattern, very similar, we've seen already. So all you need to do, practice them together. Please practice the Madi and the Mudari together. This will help you remember that they belong to one group or one pattern. Of course, we're going to be starting forming the command form very soon, inshallah, as well as nouns. We're going to derive nouns as well on the same pattern from the three root letters. So let's quickly practice one more time, inshallah, as this is a very common pattern in the Quran. Yasma'u, yasma'ani, yasma'una. Tasma'u, tasma'ani, yasma'na. Tasma'u, tasma'ani, tasma'una. Tasma'ina, tasma'ani, tasma'na. Asma'u, nasma'u. Of course, you can now translate also. Sami'a means he heard or he listened. Yasma'u, he listens or he is listening. That kind of translation. So you can do the rest because you know where the hand sign is. And inshallah ta'ala, you can work at you, they, we, I, etc., etc., based on the rules of the English language. And that is your conjugation of sami'a, yasma'u, one of the patterns of the verb for form 1. Again, the same exact principle follows through all the mudari in form 1. We have the ya, ta, ana, which you've seen many times, inshallah, which is highlighted here for you in going all the way down. That's the beginning of the verb, which indicates that it is a mudari. Of course, the rest of the verb also helps. And if you're standing in the runway, your job is to guide the planes. You see the front of the plane as you are standing there is coming towards you, meaning that action is not yet done or will be done. So same reminder again with the Baab sami'a. So exactly the same thing going on. I put the past tense and the present tense on the same screen, 14 numbers on the side. Remind you, this is the sigha, how I've numbered them for you. Please remember them or memorize them in the order as it is on the screen. This will help you avoid a lot of confusion. If you start with I and we, you'll get lost because you'll not know the base form and start from this. For now, start with the order that I've taught you. Other orders are there and there's nothing wrong with them. But in my personal view, for beginning students like ourselves, this will cause confusion. So all I ask you to do is practice using the order that I've given you. So I have now for Baab sami'a, we have 4 examples. Ra, ha, mim, we can see in the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. You should now be able to tell me because the bracket tells you seen, which reminds you that this belongs to sami'a, yasma'u. So work out now the 4 verbs in the past, madi, and the mudari. So let's go, inshallah. Pause if you have to work them out and then come back. So the first one we have is rahima, rahima, sami'a. I hope that's very clear to you. Rahima. And what is the present tense? Yarhamu, yarhamu, not yarhumu or yarhimu, yarhamu. And then we have ain lam mim giving us alima, and the present tense is ya'lamu, ya'lamu. We have another verb which sounds exactly the same, 3 root letters, but the order is slightly different. So pay attention to this one. We have ain, mim, and lam. 3 root letters, same as the previous one, but the order is different, meaning is completely different also. So this one means to work. Amila, the mudari will be ya'malu. Amila, ya'malu. Then we have sha, ha, and da, which is shahida. He witnessed as in the past tense, and yashhadu, yashhadu. Now you have 4 examples here. Of course, we could have given you many more, but with these 4 examples, you can now make 28 words for every one of them just from the root, because you simply know that it belongs to the seen pattern or the sami'a pattern. So if you learn sami'a, all of these 4 verbs will be exactly the same in their conjugation, forming 28. 28 times 4 is a big number, more than 100 words, inshallah, for you and me, just by learning this system. And it really works. You will find hundreds of verbs in the Quran now. Inshallah, you should be able to recognize whether it is Madi or Mudare. Of course, at the moment we're dealing with group 1 only, but the ending will indicate the same for every single verb in Arabic. In the Madi and the Mudare, the ending is the big indicator for the Mudare, and for the Madi, of course, the beginning. As I've been through that already with you, but don't worry. As we go through each of the most common patterns in the Quran, this will become a lot easier. But for now, we must capture what we've got, and we must value what we got, inshallah ta'ala, by learning it, memorizing it, and practicing it. Baab hasiba. We have another option when we have Madi as with the kasra in the middle root letter. Before we looked at sami'a yasma'u. What happens with this pattern, which I've written already for you, is hasiba yahsibu, not yahsabu, hasiba yahsibu. And so we have kasra in both the Madi and the Mudare. Please note, this pattern of hasiba yahsibu is very rare. Very rare in the entire Arabic language. There are millions of words. There are hundreds and thousands, if not millions of verbs. Only, I believe, about 30 verbs conform to this pattern. Only about 30. And you're very unlikely to come across any of them, apart from one verb in the Quran, which follows this pattern. Far as I know, there aren't any more. But there are derived nouns from it, and therefore I'm including it. So you have hasiba yahsibu. The one verb that exists that I know of is with a weak letter, which we'll cover later on, inshallah ta'ala. So very rarely used form. But again, we're just going to practice this one. I'm not going to dwell too much on this pattern. Hasiba yahsibu. So the hasiba, we've done the past tense already when I gave you as a example in the previous lesson. So this you should be familiar with. And again, it's exactly the same as sami'a because the middle root letter takes a kasra. Where the change happens is in the mudare. So in the mudare, it now takes a kasra also. So we have hasiba yahsibu. Hasiba yahsibu. And that is the thing with this particular pattern, both of them taking kasra. Please note that, both taking kasra. So again, the conjugations, I'll go through it only once because again, it's a very rare form. But again, we need to learn it as part of our portfolio of verbs. So let's go one more time, inshallah. Fully conjugate this one only once. But please do note that it is a pattern in the Arabic language. Yahsibu, yahsibani, yahsibuna. Tahsibu, tahsibani, yahsibna. Tahsibu, tahsibani, tahsibuna. Tahsibina, tahsibani, tahsibna. Ahsibu, nahsibu. So in principle, this pattern is exactly the same as all the others. Same rules, same everything. Apart from that, is very rare in Arabic. So again, I've given you on this screen here, hasiba yahsibu. Now, as far as my understanding of Arabic goes, the books I've looked at, this pattern, though Arabic is a very rich language, we have millions and millions of words, only 30 odd verbs fall into this pattern. And most of those, I think about 20 odd of them, actually also follow the other pattern as well. As in the example here, hasiba yahsibu can also form sami'a yasma'u pattern. So we have hasiba yahsabu, that which is used in the Quran. Hasiba yahsibu on its own is very rare. Even in the Quran, as I mentioned, only one verb is there as far as I know, and is with a weak letter. So we'll cover them later, inshallah. But I've gone standard Arabic, you will find 30 odd verbs that will follow this pattern only. And one example is given here for you at the bottom, which is na'ima yan'imu. So inshallah, this knowledge will help you with Arabic in general. As I said, please, when you see the kasra in the Madi, very rare you'll see kasra in the Mudare. So pay attention to that point, inshallah. And this will help you work out from the Madi to the Mudare. Again, I repeat, I don't want to frighten you. You don't really need to do this for Quranic Arabic. Your job in Quran is simply to recognize the verb. And you can do that just by looking at the pattern. And from there, you can work backwards relatively easily. If you practice sami'a yasma'u, you'll be fine with this, inshallah. So please do note this point. So we've noted now, alhamdulillah, when in the Madi, we have the fatha in the middle root letter, we have three options, three different options. So we can have fataha yaftahu, nasara yansuru, daraba yadribu. But when the Madi takes a kasra, please note there are only two options. You will either have here, for example, sami'a yasma'u, 99.99% of the time that it falls into this pattern, and hasiba yahsibu, very rare. So please note that. So you can almost guess. If you see sami'a, you can almost be certain it will be yasma'u pattern. So if you see kasra in the middle of the madi, mudari will have a fatha. Please note, it will never ever take a dhamma. Never. So you never have kasra here and dhamma there. So that pattern doesn't exist. So even though there are 3 options like the previous one, only 2 are possible. One is common, the other is very, very rare. So again, just to remind you, we have sami'a as an example and we have hasiba as an example. So please note these points, inshallah. Don't worry about the rest of the slides. I'll explain that later. So we've now done fataha, yaftahu, nasara, yansuru, daraba, yadribu. And with the kasra, we've done 2, sami'a, yasma'u, and we also have hasiba, yahsibu. That's it. There is no u sound when it comes to the madi with the kasra. Please note this very, very important point. Only 2 possibilities with the kasra. Lastly remaining is now one where in the middle root letter it takes a dhamma. What happens? Baab, karuma. So we have now back to our 2 madi and mudari template. The bits on the screen are fixed. The only possible changes now is the dhamma in the middle root letter here. And what happens? Dhamma in the middle root letter here. So when you have pesh here and or dhamma, pesh here, dhamma, you'll have the same here. And this is called Baab karuma. Baab karuma, and it becomes yak rumu. Karuma yak rumu. Not yak ramu, not yak rimu. Karuma yak rumu. Please remember that, inshallah. Karuma yak rumu. This pattern also very similar to hasiba yahsibu is also very rare in Arabic. Very few words, there are some in the Quran, very few words are on this pattern, but there are some derived nouns which are very, very common in Arabic and Quran, which are from this pattern, from the root. Inshallah, we're going to look at derived nouns very soon, so you'll be able to make sense why I'm including this pattern also for you to know. And of course, there is no really extra effort in learning this one. It's almost exactly the same. As you can see, we've already done the karuma madi, and because it's very rare, I'm not going to practice this anymore, but please do take your time to make a note of the changes. So it's not karama, karima, karuma. And here is the conjugation of the mudare. Again, please note, there is nothing here to surprise you. Nothing here to cause you any difficulty, except for the fact that all you got to remember is the dhamma in the middle root letter. And you have number 1, you can form all the other 13. And that is what I meant by 1, get 14 free. You learn this one, the rest is very easy. Long as you slow down at the beginning, inshallah, you'll be able to speed it up. I'm just going to go through it once now, because this is again a very rare pattern in Arabic, but we do need to learn it for our benefit. So let's go through it, inshallah. Yakrumu. Yakrumani, yakrumuna, takrumu, takrumani, yakrumna, takrumu, takrumani, takrumuna, takrumina, takrumani, takrumna, akrumu, nakrumu, akrumu, nakrumu. That's the karuma, yakrumu conjugated for you. Just revise it once or twice, inshallah, but just make an awareness in your head that there is this pattern and does exist, and inshallah in derived nouns I will point you out where they're coming from when it comes to that stage, so you can instantly recognize them when you see them in the Quran. No different than the others. Let's practice few, and we have now on the screen 3 different verbs which are from this pattern. So again, take your time, see if you can work it out, what should be the madi and the mudare, pointing the fact that I've given you the template on the right hand side. So what we have, Qaf, Ra and Ba, what should it be? And the others, please do them. Okay, let's go through them now. We have Qaruba. Qaruba. What should be this one? Yaqrubu. Yaqrubu. And next we have Ba'uda. Yab'udu. Ba'uda. Yab'udu. Tha, Qaf, Lam. We have Thaqula. Yathqulu. Thaqula. Yathqulu. And you can see that, inshallah, relatively easy because you know how to do the karuma yakrumu. And that's it. That's the 6th pattern, and that's the last pattern. Good news. When you have karuma, there is no other possibility. It will always be u in the middle root letter. So there is no fatha or kasra to worry about. Karuma yakrumu, and that's it. So if you see dhamma in the middle root letter of the madi, of the group 1 pattern, then it will always be dhamma in the mudari. And that's it. So this chart now summarizes for you the 6 different patterns of form 1 from Madi to Mudari. To be honest, they're almost identical. There's very little difference between them, but there is a difference in the root letter, the middle root letter of the verb in the Madi and the Mudari. Now, the reason why I've included this slide for this is quite important for you, so do please pay attention to this one. This is the different ways in different books use to indicate that the verb belongs to that group, that pattern. So in some places you will see 2 vowel signs, which you can see here. So for example, you see fatha here, fatha there. What does that mean? It means to fataha yaftahu. So that indicates one way. In some books you'll see AA. A stands for fatha, AU, which is fatha dhamma, and you have AI, which is fatha and kasra. That's another way of pointing it out. Some dictionaries will simply give you the Madi and they'll put a fatha afterwards on top of a line. Again, that reminds you that this is fa'ala, this is this, so you know that it is fataha yaftahu. Now, others will indicate simply by putting fa at the end of the root letter to tell you that belongs to fataha yaftahu. All I've done is I've chosen the short symbol fa, noon, dad. Why? I think it's a lot easier than trying to remember a or o or a-e. It's just easier in my view. And of course, you have the example itself. And this is the point I'm trying to get at. If you want to remember something, technicalities doesn't help us. But if we actually learn a verb which is being used, fataha yaftahu, then we can do that inshallah ta'ala. So if you practice fataha yaftahu, nasara, yansuru, daraba, yadribu, alhamdulillah, you've got all the patterns. But I will be using in my notes and others on the screen, fa, noon, dad, and of course, sin for sami'a, yasma'u, ha for hasiba, yahsibu, and ka for karuma, yakrumu. And that's it. These are the only 6 patterns in group 1. Every verb that belongs to group 1, which is the majority of the verbs in the Quran, will conform to one of these, and it's relatively easy to work out which one it belongs to. So please note the conventions that are used widely. These are just some of them. I just think that this is the simplest way, and therefore that's the one I'm going to be using. Summary of pattern 1. Inshallah, I've just included a few more slides just to remove a lot of confusion what happens when it comes to learning verbs. I was just learning endless verbs when I started, and I had a lot of difficulty, to be honest. I gave up so many times, restarted again. So I found this method at the end of all the messing around that I did. May Allah forgive me, one waste of time, but I came back to this method, which I found the easiest way to recall. So let me share the few summary sheets, inshallah. And if you stick to this roadmap, I believe, inshallah, you'll see benefit. As I say, if you're struggling, do let me know. My job or my intention only is to make things as easy as possible. If I confuse you, then of course, my main objective has been defeated. So inshallah ta'ala, I'm making dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah inspires me to say that which is of benefit for all of us. So again, just go back to what is happening. A lot of confusion about how do I work out which one it belongs to and all of this. And the truth is you don't. You don't really need to. What you need to do is recognize it. And that's a lot easier than going through hundreds and thousands of verbs. We don't need to do that. Alhamdulillah, Quranic vocabulary is relatively easy. All we need to remember are these fa, noon, dad, sin, ha, kaf examples I've given you. Fataha, yaftahu, nasara, yansuru, daraba, yadribu, sami'a, yasma'u, hasiba, yahsibu, karuma, yakrum. That's it. So again, just reiterate what happens with fa'ala. So if you have 3 possibilities with fatha in the middle root letter in the Madi, it can take a fatha, dhamma, or kasra. And all you need to remember is fataha, yaftahu, nasara, yansuru, daraba, yadribu. Now you might say, well, what if it takes a kasra? It's actually relatively easy also. Why? Because it's actually easier than the first one. There's only 2 possibilities. Either it will take a fatha or it will take a kasra. It will never take a dhamma. So let's go through the examples. Sami'a, yasma'u. You will never ever see a verb with a dhamma in the middle root letter where the Madi takes a kasra. Please note that. So there's only 2 possibilities, and I've also already told you, hasiba, yahsibu is very, very rare. So 99.9% of the time, if you just threw your dart in the dark, you'll be fine, because there's only one possibility as far as you and I are concerned. This one's very rare. Now, when it comes to u, what can happen? Again, as I've already explained that to you, you got fa'ala, fa'ula, fa'ila, but reality is none of the others are applicable. Only karuma yakrum. So with u, there's only u. With e, there is two possibilities. One, most likely. Only difficulty is with a, there is three possibilities. Again, you don't really need to recall or remember any of this. If you remember fataha yaftahu and the rest, it will save you a lot of time if you just memorize these 6 verbs, out of which 4 are critical. The last 2 in the order given are less critical. So if you can remember the first 4, inshallah, I'm asking you and appealing to you to invest this time, because it will pay dividends, inshallah, in your learning. So go back to my summary chart. Again, summarizing this sheet will give you all you need to work out all the Madi and the Mudare in Form 1. I repeat again, in Form 1. In all honesty, Form 2 to 10 are very easy. And inshallah, when we come to it, you'll see it. We will do that at level 2. But this is the most important, I will say the most complex in terms of changes and so on, and most common. So let's do that one first, so we can make a leap, or we can get a leap start in Quranic understanding. So this chart will help you, again, just as a kind reminder to you that these fa, noon, and so on, shortcuts that I'm using, this is the one I found the easiest one to remember, and that's why I will be using that one. It saves a lot of space also on writing on the screen as well. So this is the convention, and again, alerting right from the beginning. I'll just say that this belongs to the fa family, or noon, or dad, or sin, or ha, and you should be able, or ka, you should be able to work out from there. Let me share with you a very, very easy way of remembering these 6 different babs that we've went through already. Inshallah, if you repeat these sentences a few times, by saying it loudly, writing them down maybe, you can remember all of these 6 without ever having to forget them, inshallah. All it needs is a little bit of practice for you to do, inshallah, in the way I'm saying them to you. So please repeat after me exactly the same way, make a few notes, and inshallah, for the rest of your life, you remember these 6 babs. So let's start. Repeat after me. Open the Quran. Fataha yaftahu. Allah will help you. Nasara yansuru. Otherwise, the dunya will beat you. Daraba yadribu. Therefore, listen carefully. Sami'a yasma'u. And count your good deeds. Hasiba yahsibu. And be noble. Karuma yakrumu. Let's do it one more time. Open the Quran. Fataha yaftahu. Allah will help you. Nasara yansuru. Otherwise, the dunya will beat you. Daraba yadribu. Therefore, listen carefully. Sami'a yasma'u. Count your good deeds. Hasiba yahsibu. And be noble. Karuma yakrumu. May Allah grant all of us tawfiq to learn this, to practice this, and most importantly, to recognize this instantly in the Quran, and of course in any other text, hadith, and others that we will be studying in the future. May Allah grant all of us the very best in this world and the hereafter. Lastly, let me share with you on the screen the 6 different patterns and what they conjugate. And again, you can see, alhamdulillah, essentially they're almost all identical, but of course is the way they change from the Madi to the Mudare. So this screen has all the 6 patterns fully conjugated. I hope and pray I have not made any mistakes on the screen. I've typed all this up for your benefit, inshallah, and you will see all of the 6 patterns here. And that's all you need. Trust me, that's all you need. Don't look for anything else outside this for Form 1. If you do, you're wasting your time. That's all you need, inshallah ta'ala. And this is all that was going to help you recognize more than 10,000 plus verbs in the Quran, and of course in hadith and other literatures. They all fall. Of course, there is a slight change which I'll tell you about in the second level, whether we have weak letter verbs, and that we'll be dealing with in the intermediate level, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, we reached the end of lesson 17. Now, alhamdulillah, we have a solid base by the end of this lesson. We are familiar with the Madi and the Mudare for Form 1 and all the possible 6 different patterns they could fall into. I'm confident if you were to open any page of the Quran and just go through a quick look at each line, each word, you'll be able to now start to recognize hundreds and thousands of words in the Quran from all the past lessons I've given you. Now, of course, you'll be beginning to recognize verbs. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Until and unless you put some practice in, all the knowledge that you acquire by watching the video, making your notes, will be lost. So it is through practice that we gain, inshallah ta'ala, some understanding or deeper understanding of the subject. I'm really humbled by all your kind and positive comments. I really, really hope and pray to Allah Azza wa Jal that I'm being able to do justice to the subject. And if there are any questions or any complexities, please do alert me. Or if there's any mistakes, please do alert me. We are human beings, and of course, human beings are prone to making mistakes. So I ask you to alert me and let me know, inshallah. We will always try to improve for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Again, take this opportunity to appeal to you to share this course and its material with the ummah at large, so more and more people can join us in this journey. And inshallah, all of us get closer and closer to the understanding of Quran each and every day of our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with the very best in this world and in the hereafter. May Allah unite our hearts, forgive all our mistakes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be merciful upon us, upon our parents, and all those around us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
الذي علم بالقلم